Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. I wanted to go ahead and start the live video as I was preparing to come in here. Hey Marcus, how you doing? I am doing fantastic. If you're watching the video live here at 11:48 on the East Coast on this Saturday night, feel free to comment as we go. Make sure you give the video a like and a thumbs up and share the video on all social media platforms as soon as we are done. Hey, Eric, glad to have you here, man. I know you are a happy man since Tennessee just finished off that win over Oklahoma about 10 minutes ago, and I was writing some final things down on my board before I came in here and sat down and got ready. And it's still funny to look at your screen on this Saturday night and see Kansas State and BYU playing, and it's a Big 12 game. But it is. I know there's still some games going on, Kansas State, BYU, and a few others. But I think most of the games that everybody cares about have already finished up. So I wanted to go ahead and come on here and talk about it. So if you watch as we go and you have any comments, please be sure to let me know down below in the comment section. I had two wrestling shows today, one at 1 o'clock in Commerce, Georgia, one at 7 o'clock in East Denali, Georgia. And I tell you what, Eric, to be honest with you, I believe firmly that Oklahoma should have gone with, I believe his name is Hawkins, the quarterback that came in the game. I've thought all year long that Jackson Arnold is just not any good, and Tennessee was dominating that game. And I actually told everybody that I thought Tennessee would win that game by at least 2 touchdowns because Oklahoma's offensive line is just awful, and I knew Tennessee's defensive line would just dominate the backfield, and it did. But Oklahoma's offense did look a lot better with Hawkins under center, especially there in the fourth quarter. I definitely believe Oklahoma's better off going forward and playing Hawkins. But I don't know that it makes a big difference because their offensive line is just dreadful. So whenever they play somebody that has a decent defensive line, Oklahoma's quarterback, whether it's Arnold or Hawkins, has no chance. And Hawkins is definitely better than Arnold. I saw Arnold play some last year and just didn't see a lot that I thought was great, but he definitely has not improved any. I think Oklahoma's in for about 3 or 4 losses this year. I just don't see the talent on the offensive side of the ball. And the offensive line is bad, but outside of the offensive line, they just don't have the playmaker they normally have on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense will keep them in most games, but you've got to be able to score. But Illinois, back on Friday night, defeated Nebraska by the score of 31-24. Coach Heupel took his foot off the gas in the second half and went conservative. But also some of Tennessee's O-lineman was injured, and Campbell, the left tackle, went down tonight. And honestly, I don't know if it's one of those things where you take your foot off the gas or if you just realize that you've got the game won. So when it's late third, early fourth quarter, of course, you still want to score some more, but winning the game is the most important thing. And Oklahoma's a ranked team, and you dominated. So even if you would have scored another touchdown or two, it really wouldn't have done you much good because everybody knows you dominated. Anybody that watched the game knows you dominated. But not only was Illinois Nebraska Friday night, there were some other good games last night. Stanford defeated Syracuse 26-24, and Washington State defeated San Jose State 54-52. All of those games were last night, and then Thursday night, South Alabama coming off of scoring, I believe, 87 points against Northwestern State. They put up 48 Thursday night against Appalachian State. South Bama wins the game 48-14. Their head coach is Major Applewhite. As far as the games today, of course, we know the only game we should talk about is Clemson and NC State. Clemson wins the game 59-35, and honestly, it was not that close. Just like the Appalachian State game, you could have scored more, but what's the point? People that watch the game know you dominated, but it was 28-0 in the first quarter, 45-14 at halftime. So if you're a Clemson fan, the only thing to be upset about is it looks like your defense just in the fourth quarter said, okay, game's over with. You know, we're not going to tackle and play defense anymore. And I know it was mainly backups, but you still got to go out there and play as hard as you can, and they didn't do it. Now it's confusing because now you've played 2 straight games where your offense has looked absolutely incredible after 3 years of your offense being absolutely terrible. What changed after the Georgia game? Nobody knows, because all the Clemson websites and all the Clemson podcasters and all the Clemson writers, anybody affiliated with the program at all, say that, you know, the offense hasn't changed as far as the playbook. It's just the execution has gotten better. And I will say the execution has gotten better, but I've also, in the last 2 games against App State and NC State, seen formations I didn't see before. And I've seen all kind of stuff I haven't seen before. They hadn't ran the jet sweep in 20 years, and then all of a sudden against App State, they brought it back. So why did you have plays in your playbook that you didn't run until you went out and got embarrassed against Georgia? I thought the whole point of having the plays in the playbook was to keep from getting embarrassed, not wait until you do and then run them. It doesn't make any sense. So if they were there and you didn't use them, why didn't you use them? And if they weren't in the playbook, why weren't they? Because obviously you can do them. So it just doesn't make sense how you've had 3+ years of a terrible offense, and now all of a sudden, after you get embarrassed in week 1 on national TV, the last 2 games, your offense has been completely different. The quarterback looks different. The linemen look different. The receivers look different. The receivers have spent 3 years not catching the pass, and now all of a sudden, they can catch. I don't know what changed. Maybe just getting embarrassed on national TV embarrassed the whole team. I don't know, but it's definitely not the same team, especially on offense we've seen the last 3 years. Florida defeated Mississippi State in the battle of 2 suck-out-loud teams, 45-28. Maryland defeats Villanova 38-20. James Madison, and probably easily the upset of the weekend, defeated North Carolina 70-50. And the sad part was James Madison got most of those points in the first half. North Carolina just could not stop them at all. And North Carolina's down to their 3rd-string quarterback. So everybody thought that, you know, North Carolina's in trouble because they're down their 3rd-string quarterback. Their offense was fine. Their defense is absolutely atrocious. Now, they claim that after the game, Mac Brown offered to step away, offered to step down, and the players said, no, coach, please don't go. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Even if it is, it's not surprising, because 95% of the time, if a coach does that, all the players, the spur of the moment, are going to say, please don't leave. So it's not shocking that they would say that. But I've said here on this channel since I started this channel that Mack Brown is the most overrated coach in the history of the world. You look at the amount of games he's won and how long he's coached. He wins about 8 games a year. And really, it's not that much. It's only 8 games a year because he had that 5-year stretch at Texas where he pretty much didn't lose. Outside of that 5-year stretch, he's about a 6.5, 7-win coach. That's what he is. He knows football. He can talk football. He can watch football. But on the field, he can't coach football. Why people are so big on Mack Brown, I don't know. I've never figured it out. Only coach I've ever seen this day and time where football is all about quarterbacks and all about the offense. He's had back-to-back NFL quarterbacks, got a great running back, got great wide receivers, and he's won absolutely nothing, and people still talk about Mack Brown. Mack Brown sucks. He's awful. He cannot coach. Cincinnati defeated Houston 34-0. Tulane beat Louisiana 41-30. Army defeated Rice by the score of 37-14. West Virginia beat Kansas 32-28. That game started right around noon Eastern and didn't end until about 6 or 6:30. They had a huge weather delay for lightning about the time the fourth quarter started, and it was lightning for quite a while. Of course, every time you see lightning, you have to put 30 minutes on the clock and start over again. If you see lightning in that time frame, you start it over again. So they had probably about a 2.5-hour delay because of lightning. And Kansas has been really good the last couple years, and their problem has been when they don't win is because their quarterback gets hurt. So going into the season, you wondered, could he stay healthy? This year he stayed healthy, and he's just not been near as good. I'm not sure why, but he hasn't. So Kansas off to a 1-3 start, and to a lot of people, they were the favorites this year in the Big 12 now that Oklahoma and Texas are no longer there. Iowa State defeated Arkansas State 52-7. The Cyclones are off to a good start this year. Michigan defeats USC 27-24. And I mentioned earlier in the week that Michigan just has no quarterback play. How you can have the talent they have and not have a quarterback, I don't know. But I'm not sure exactly what Orgy ended up with. I'll have to go back and look later on. But I believe about the middle of the fourth quarter, he had 32 passing yards. And shockingly, surprisingly, believe it or not, he's their best quarterback. LSU defeats UCLA 34-17. The second half was all LSU. It was actually 17-17 at one time. In a game that I said earlier in the week that I thought would be a pretty good game, and it was. Louisville beats Georgia Tech 31-19. I still think Georgia Tech would have been better off hiring Willie as their coach. Of course, they tried, but they backed out because he wanted to coach Tulane's bowl game, and Tech didn't like that. But I will say that I think Brent Key's doing a good job. Utah defeated Oklahoma State 22-19, and almost all Oklahoma State's points came in the fourth quarter. But if you're Utah, you've got a great defense, but you might as well just start running your offense knowing that Cam Rising is not going to be there. And if you're Cam Rising, you've kind of got to wonder, why are you still playing football? Because no NFL team is going to want you because you've been at Utah for 10 years and you've played about 6 games. So nobody has any inkling or a clue or an idea of how good you might be because you're always hurt. If he gets a hangnail, he doesn't play. And you can't be Utah and go into a game preparing for him to be there, knowing he's not going to be there. And No NFL team is going to want him because of his injury problems, and Utah can't use him because of injury problems. So I'm really not sure why he keeps playing, but you can darn well bet he probably won't play next week. And if he does, he'll get hurt again. But if Cam Rising could play, he'd be good. But the best ability is availability. And if he gets a headache, he's not going to play. I think he's made of Charmin. So if you're Utah, just prepare for Cam Rising to not play. Arkansas defeats Auburn 24-14. And you want to talk about bad? Auburn's offense couldn't score on air. I mean, it is absolutely pitiful. And it's sad because Hugh Freeze is supposed to be this offensive genius, this great offensive mind, and I just don't see it. Their offense was awful last year, and if it's better this year, it ain't much better this year, but I don't think it's better. Missouri had to go to double overtime to defeat Vanderbilt 30-27. Florida State gets their first win of the year. They defeat California 14-9. And I've mentioned this many a times, I know, but if you're Florida State, you've got to stick with DJ because DJ is your best quarterback. He may only be good, but right now, good is all they have. The second string guy played last year when Jordan Travis got hurt. He's not any good. Their third string guy will be good in the future, but he's not ready. But if you watch Florida State play, DJ's not the problem. I know he'll be the scapegoat because it's easier to blame one person than blame everybody. But their offensive line is hideous, just like Oklahoma's, so they cannot run the ball. And their defense is below average. It's not awful, but it's below average. And it's mainly because their defensive line is terrible, and they cannot put pressure on any opposing team's quarterback in the backfield because they have no defensive line. So when you have no offensive line, no defensive line, and you can't run the ball, you're not going to do a whole lot. And if you bring in the second string quarterback who was no good last year, you're going to get him killed. So DJ might just be average, but he's their best choice. DJ doesn't win you games. He just doesn't lose you games. He's just there. He's going to go out and do his job and go home and nothing extra. So if everybody else does their job, he'll win for you. But if the game's in his hands, you can forget it. But he is not Florida State's problem. In a game with no defense, 108 total points scored, SMU defeats TCU 66-42. Navy defeats Memphis 56-44. Rutgers defeats Virginia Tech 26-23. In overtime, Tulsa defeats Louisiana Tech 23-20. In a game that was Minnesota 14, Iowa 7 at halftime, second half, all Hawkeyes. Iowa defeats Minnesota 31-14. And the game Eric talked about a while ago, Tennessee defeats Oklahoma 25-15. Tennessee's 25 came because of the safety. And the game was 22-3 going to the fourth quarter, so it looked like Oklahoma had no chance. But their offense, the longer Hawkins played, the better it got, but they were just too far behind. So I said Tennessee wins by 2 touchdowns, not quite. It was 10. And that's because Oklahoma changed their quarterback. Had they stuck with Jackson Arnold, Tennessee would have easily won by probably 3 or 4 touchdowns. And Boston College defeats Michigan State 23-19. I think most people underestimate Boston College because they have first-year head coach Bill O'Brien, but Bill O'Brien's not a new head coach. He's just new at Boston College. But Bill O'Brien's a good coach. You know, he left his previous college head coaching job to go to the NFL, and he was actually a coach that was successful at both levels. He was successful with the Texans as long as he was just a head coach. When he became the head coach / GM, it went in the toilet. When he was just a head coach, the Texans were a playoff team every year, and And now he's coaching the Boston College Eagles like an NFL team. And it's working because they're off to a 3-1 start. And most folk didn't have them winning but 5 or 6 games this year. Any thoughts on any of this or the games going on right now? Please feel free to let me know. I hope that somehow, some way, Baylor came back and beat Colorado. They were still playing when I started the video, and I can't check because I'm doing the video. But it went to overtime. Colorado went up 38-31. Baylor got the ball, and I came in here. But I think everybody knows by now how much I love Deion Sanders. And yes, I'm being sarcastic. But let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. Joe and Mark each started a shoe insert company. Now they are arch enemies. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them.